once again to another episode of Horror Cult. It's episode number 4. In this edition, we're going to talk a little bit about anthology horror. We're going to talk about those movies that combine multiple tracks of terror into one convincing monstrous sandwich. Sinister sandwich.
Sinister sandwich.
Sinister sandwich. I'm one of your two hosts for this occasion, Victor Moreno, along with Kirby Nelson. Cue sound effect. Sorry guys, we've just been busy the last couple of weeks, so we're a little behind in getting as many episodes out to you as we would like to. So we're just going to kind of do a little bit of a ramp up, catch up, if you will. The main movie that I think both of us saw in the last week was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, directed by Andre Overdahl, the director of Troll Hunter and The Autopsy of Jane Doe, which I'm pretty sure was one of my best films. Was on my best films list for 2016.
It was, and we just discussed in our Possession episode.
Yeah, such a good movie.
Excellent movie. Troll Hunter's a great movie too.
Yeah.
And Guillermo del Toro involved, produced, and wrote the original draft.
Mm-hmm.
And I know got a review up that on cultfollowing.co.
Yep.
So it's say long awaited is probably an understatement.
I think this was like a lot of people's most anticipated film for this year, weirdly enough. Because evidently, now it's based on a series of books.
It is?
Called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark by a guy named Alvin Schwartz. See, folks, you might not know this, but I have a multicultural background, so I did not grow up with these stories. The first time I ever heard of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark was a couple years back when I went to the Guillermo del Toro LACMA retrospective in Los Angeles, and he owned the original artwork for a lot of the books. And I remember it was with Ruby and a couple other people, and everyone I saw was like, "Look, it's Scary Stories." And I'm like, "What is this?" Literally, I was like, "Oh my god!" It's like a Berenstein Bears effect kind of deal, or a Mandela effect. I was like, I have no idea what the hell this is, but everybody apparently is like insanely like taken by this thing, And I didn't really, I still haven't read it, but it's just a bunch of short, like 2-page scary stories.
I like how you make it multicultural, like your mother was talking about the kukui or something, and therefore you never heard of Scary Stories. But I mean, like, I found it. I mean, we have in my family, like, my brother used to get. It's one of the most challenged books ever in library history in the public school system. Because
I might have been an unknowing victim of censorship.
You may have been an unknowing victim of Tipper Gore. But no, it really was just. I think. It came out in 1981, so it was a couple years after we were born.
Yeah,
Victor and I are about the same age, and so it's just one of those things where I think people who grew up with it and know it really, really well, and those who didn't, and it's for various reasons. I mean, it's not necessarily. I mean, it definitely was more popular when I was young.
Yeah.
And by the time I had hit probably preteens or what's now the tween years, I don't think many people mention it.
I didn't have any friends who had ever read this book or heard of it. If you said it came out like 81, I would have had to have like much older friends who grew up with it.
And that's what I mean. Like, I had an older brother, so my brother probably rented it, had it, and therefore it just kind of became a thing. But the other part too is, like I said, it was like in a library system. It wasn't quite like.
It's not Scholastic. It wasn't like Goosebumps or something.
Yeah, well, Scholastic. I think that like the Scholastic Book Fair was a way of life, but I also think that a big part of it was that there were a series of books and stuff. Like Where's Waldo was the first one I ever remember being like, that's the book people grabbed. That and those Hidden Pictures. Like, that's kind of what I remember on the tail end of my primary years. Like,
I mean, when I think of like scary, like, or at least horror book, anything remotely close to that. I mean, I remember like, I don't know if these are Goosebumps. It wasn't like my teacher is an alien.
Yeah, I read that. That was what my 4th grade book report
Right?
was on.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of that. That was like the pre-Goosebumps years.
Yeah.
And then there was like, there was always, it's weird. Like, Goosebumps came out when I was heading into like junior high.
Yeah.
So it was like, read it, but at the same time I was reading Stephen King and Clive Barker.
Yeah, see.
So I was kind of like, oh, yeah, it's okay.
I think that's kind of the same deal, because I remember like when I was already like in 6th grade, that was when I was like reading like Anne Rice books or like Poppy Z. Bright. I remember like in junior high, I was like reading those like terrible Hot Blood anthologies.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
mm-hmm.
Dude. I swear to God, anyone our age has to remember like going to like Walden Books or B. Dalton and like, oh, the sexy horror books.
Well, there was a big
and Tales from the Crypt was already a thing then.
Well,
yeah,
too. Tales from the Crypt was like the first anthology. I mean, I grew up, because that's not true, because I do remember watching Tales from the Dark Side. Yeah. Obviously, Twilight Zone.
Tales from the Dark Side used to freak me out. It was a theme song.
That theme song is terrifying.
Yeah.
Also, like one of the top horrorcore hip hop samples of all time.
Yeah.
It's so perfect. But I mean, there were other shows. Of course, there was the revival of Twilight Zone. I don't remember if Beyond Belief, I think, was out at about a little around that time.
No,
later.
I think
not
Beyond
when I was
Belief
a kid,
was like like when I was in high school or something.
Yeah.
Like it was. Yeah, it was. It's totally the late 90s.
Because it wasn't Jonathan Frakes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
so it was
here's the whole
later.
thing. The other like a week or two ago, I was talking to Ruby, and she'd never heard of Beyond Belief, fact or fiction, and I like found there's a super cut on YouTube. I'm gonna have to link in the description of this episode of Jonathan Frakes doing like the rhetorical questions introducing every episode. It's like, do you believe a dog can bark in the supernatural, and all this stupid garbage? And then there's one that's just him doing bad puns for 5 minutes, and we were like dying laughing.
That makes me think of the Robot Chicken Crypt Keeper Monster High one.
Yeah.
Like, I would have hoped you would have come onto that show too, but the no, I mean, the heavy when I was a kid was actually Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah,
that was the scariest show I think I ever saw. Like, it terrified me. Most of the episodes, like Tales from the Crypt or Tales from the Dark Side, weren't actually that terrifying. They weren't quite as it's just kind of like, some were a little creepy, but most of them, the ones that I saw, kind of like when Monsters came out, the occasional episode of Monsters I catch secondhand. I mean, some were really good, and a lot of them were just kind of. I mean, a lot of people kind of have this. They had low budgets, like Freddy's Nightmares.
I remember Freddy's Nightmares. I think used to freak me out more because I built it up in my head.
Yeah.
Because, like, oh my God, Freddy. Because, this was Freddy's Nightmares. I think came out before Freddy became like the punning joke.
It was right. It was between it was right after 4, so he was just hitting that stride. But
yeah, and it was like, at least where I lived, it was on Saturdays at like 11:30.
Well, yeah, because it had to be moved,
right? And then it was just like, oh shit, like you're doing something wrong, even being up this late to watch it. So it just created more of this like weird mood. And I don't know if that kind of like weird like horror guilt is even a thing. But I swear to God, it has to be. Like, you felt like the fact that you felt bad that you were doing it made it that much more. You got spooked that much easier.
Well, I definitely remember less on the spook and more on the sex was I remember staying up to watch Tales from the Crypt because it was the only time I ever got to see nudity.
Right.
On any show, and definitely in most movies. My folks were always, like most people in the States, is just that. Profanity and violence were okay, but nudity and like sex were verboten, and so it was and that kind of going back to that whole like B. Dalton Walden Books thing. I mean, the other ones I always remember reading was like Nancy A. Collins and stuff, and a lot of those anthology books where I could read the short stories.
Yeah,
and a lot of them had gratuitous and copious amounts of sex, and
Yeah.
and it was like for a kid, it wasn't that like Stephen King and Clive Barker, obviously that wasn't prevalent in their works either. It was just a matter of that it was a cheap thrill kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just weird because, like, I remember I bought a lot of horror anthology books when I was, because I read a lot when I was younger. I don't really read that much anymore, because there's so much shit to watch. But like I remember I had like all these like Poppy Z Bright short story collections and Hot Blood and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of it was just like weird, like I mean, jumping and using weird literary terms. How many horror like anthologies, like especially in the '80s, use this idea of Orientalism. Like we're gonna do this whole thing where it's like horror, but we're gonna like explore Asian or Indian culture at the same time and make it that like much weirder, and like, oh, because it's something you don't know, it's like, oh fuck, this might be real. Because I remember there's one Poppy Z Bright short story that I really liked. It's where she's in India and there's a zombie apocalypse, and this was like I'm reading this in 1992, where like they throw bodies out in the Ganges and then people start coming back, and it's like, oh, they just were wrong about that person dying, so they start biting people. And there was another one I remember was really freaky, where these two guys like break into like a funeral home in like Chinatown in San Francisco, because they heard the mortician who runs it like keeps an opium stash like where they keep the corpses, and then they find like this dead girl, and like a hot Asian dead girl or whatever, before that movie Dead Girl came out, years before. And the guys are talking to each other. It's like, oh, I heard Asian girls, like, they're slit open sideways. And they're, like, all, like, talking. Like, I don't want to touch a dead girl, da-da-da. And they finally decide to do it, and it's normal. And they peel it open, and there's an eyeball looking at them. And they freak out and run, and it comes back to life because it's just, like, some, like, Cthulhu-ish corpse or something. So it's, like, that was, like, one of those early things where I'm, like, getting exposed to Lovecraftian ideas and like weird, like, oh, we're using ideas from other cultures along with zombies, which weren't less played out then as they are now.
Yeah, well, and I mean anthologies were also when you didn't have a lot of money and you had to pick one book or whatever. I mean, that was always the easiest way to go. Another big thing for me was, I think.
Oh, and before I cut you off, because I'm gonna
say, as usual.
I'm gonna say the main reason I bought that anthology was because Dan O'Bannon did the forward to that book.
Oh, did he? Yeah.
Yeah, so that was cool.
Well, my biggest one I remember, and funny enough, also in '92, I was on vacation. So I lived in Northern California. We went to Disneyland, and then actually my first visit to Arizona ever was that time to visit my grandparents who lived here at the time, and it was to see, I bought a book. Still one of my favorite anthologies, if you want to look it up. It's called Shock Rock, and Stephen King wrote the foreword.
Oh.
But it also, that was the one that introduced me to Nancy A. Collins. It introduced me, Mark Verridin wrote a story in it. A bunch of people, like, because I just started reading Dark Horse comics.
Is he the one, like, I always thought Verheiden. Okay. Just for you listening, because I always thought his name was Verheiden.
Well,
which you're probably right.
No,
it's probably somewhere in between.
Oh, it could be. Yeah. It's either or. I mean, I haven't heard it enough to really remember it. But I'm sure someone's furiously commenting right now. So whatever makes you happy. But no, it's really the anthologies and stuff. I mean, and that one was rock and roll horror anthology. And this is before I'd ever seen, obviously, like, I remember the cover of Black Roses being the most distinctive VHS, probably besides maybe Dead Pit or Metamorphosis, because it also had like a 3D kind of aspect, as I recall, or it looked 3D. I don't know, just to my mind. But
I remember Black Roses had, at least the DVD has this very cholo looking cover with.
Well, it was like one of those mirrors at a county fair, like a vending machine sticker. And, people, it was just, that was this type of art at the time. It was a black velvet painting kind of thing. And, but like rock and roll horror, I mean, I was, this is why I was just getting into, I had been into bands like Metallica and Guns N' Roses, Nirvana had just come out and stuff, but rock was, the thing. It was what was in, and to be able to read stories about it and stuff. And there were, some of the best stories I've ever read. I always consistently say that if you're going to make a horror film, and you want to make especially like an anthology, I would go back to a lot of these anthologies and mine stories. It's kind of like one of the things I always think that will revive horror franchises is years ago, like there was a couple companies like Devil's Due, Dynamite, Wildstorm who did got a lot of these projects. Our friend Brian Polito did some, for like Child's Play, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and all those. And I always felt like some of those comics had the best stories I'd ever read.
Yeah.
Better than any of the movies. And I was like, wow, this would make such an amazing film. Some were at least script length. And I was like, man, that no one will ever use this probably.
Yeah, it's
really
pretty sad when that happens. It's weird because, like, I remember at least one of, like, there's all the Anthology Crow comics and books, and one of them, Wicked Prayer, they actually did make into a movie, and it has a great cast, but the movie itself is garbage. Like, I mean, by great cast, I mean everybody in it is famous, but also it's just super weird. Like, David Boreanaz is like this rockabilly, like, Satanist, and he's trying to kidnap Emmanuel Shikri, who's like Danny Trejo's daughter, so he can get this Indian blood and come back from the dead. And then, like, David Boreanaz his wife or his girlfriend in the movie is Tara Reid, who is trying to be a satanic priestess, and her dad is Dennis Hopper, and Edward Furlong is the Crow.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It was always the most. You knew after, what was it, City of Angels, that was going.
I like City.
No,
of
but
Angels,
it was going downhill in terms. It was going not downhill as much as it was direct to video.
Yeah,
it was just.
To be fair, I'll say I like the color direction, the directing and stuff of City of Angels. It is not a great movie.
Well, yeah, it's just. I mean, that's also just what happened to a lot of movies. It's funny too in that just that little bit you just gave. I also always laugh because. Is it? I've heard it pronounced David Boreanaz and Borean, like all these different.
Boring anus.
Well, that too. Maybe I'm sure it's probably his.
Sorry,
his junior high years.
Yeah.
Do you want me to sign your Bones DVD?
God.
Well, we'll probably see him eventually.
I do think it's funny. I guess they just had like the 20th anniversary of Angel not that long ago. I'm like, shit, that does not seem.
Well, if you think that,
but really,
Buffy's already been off the air for 15 years.
Yeah,
almost 16. It's been 16.
Yeah,
that's crazy to think.
Yeah,
that was already done.
And it's weird because like I was kind of surprised, just like shit, like most of that cast actually aged really well.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. And they all had, generally almost everybody in that cast had success. It's funny thing about signing DVDs, because I did see at some Monster Palooza that Jenna Elfman's going to be there.
I saw that this morning, and I was like, what the fuck horror thing is Jenna Elfman?
Fear the Walking Dead, which I had no idea, because
Who watches that show? You don't watch Fear the...
I watched the first season and first 2 seasons, and I actually did enjoy it.
How many seasons does that show
I don't know. That's the problem, is I never watched anything past the first couple. So, I mean, I'm guessing it's on 4 or 5 now.
Oh, my God. All right, audience, please. I mean, they're starting a 3rd Walking Dead. Has Fear the Walking Dead really been on for more than 3 fucking years?
Yeah, it was started in 2015 or 16.
I don't know who the fuck watches this show. I never hear anybody go, God, I love Fear the Walking Dead.
The fear that people have Talking Dead podcast shirts, I don't know, or show shirts. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I've heard the Walking Dead conventions, those Walker Stalker things, are like going out of business too.
Well, yeah, but that's also because eventually, I mean, that's inevitable, because it's just like, I mean, look how fast. I mean, you look at like the most revered shows the last few years. Sons of Anarchy, Boardwalk Empire.
Sons of Anarchy was a really good show.
It was a great show. It was the only show I've ever binged every time. But I mean, I want to see, like, in terms of plummet, like, look at Game of Thrones. How fast that went downhill. And it's like, you know, I mean, those people have probably got like a year or 2 now, because the box set will be coming out. There are people who are still fans. But I mean, for people who think Game of Thrones is like Harry Potter or something,
no, dude,
you're in
over.
You're in the wrong speculative market there. Cause it's done.
We went to San Diego Comic-Con, and you know, Game of Thrones just ended like a couple months ago. It's like 0 presence. I mean, they had a panel that was like,
I heard.
Yeah, they went from like being in the Hall H to being in like one of the smallest rooms or something, and it's just like nobody cares anymore, you know. And it's like, you know, I'm not going to diss the show for, you know, I mean, clearly the ending didn't make a lot of people happy. It didn't make me happy, but it's the ending, and I'm not gonna go bitch about it. Like, people are like, oh, at least the next Star Wars movie is gonna like erase everything in the last one we didn't like. I'm not a fan of fan service. You should have like, if you have a vision for your ending, fine, stick to it, even if it doesn't make people happy.
That's something I strongly agree with. It's because I'm tired of people. I mean, it's like, and it's not just the fan service and respective things, but it's also like the whole. It's like people want something, and then they're like, if it doesn't turn out exactly the way they want, then they don't realize that eventually it's never going to be there.
Yeah.
Like, I played them when I was young, but like the whole Sonic the Hedgehog thing, like to me, it's like, well, now there's never going to be another Sonic movie because they already just the money they probably could have put another 40, 50, 60 million dollars into the next one, even if it was like direct to video or a Netflix deal, it's over because they've just sunk everything in, and everyone's like, well, I hate it. And it's like, well, that's part of the reason we've talked, obviously, in our past cult following episodes and other things about why video game movies have so many problems.
Yeah.
It's because of fan service. It's the biggest issue to it.
Yeah, if you're gonna option a certain property, either go 100% ignore it completely, or you need to be faithful to it, because the people who play video games specifically or read books invest dozens or hundreds of hours into reading these things. It's a much deeper investment than reading a comic book. You know what I'm saying? And like, you're fucking with people's imaginary lives there, and that's going to be something that they're not going to let go that easily.
Yeah, which, I mean, like I said, it can be on its own argument itself, but I just feel like when you're talking about, like I said, these kind of things that, it's, I don't know how to put it exactly into words, because it's difficult, because like I said, I'm a fan, and I want to, be, it's kind of like here, like something like we were talking about, like scary stories.
Yeah.
You have such a dedicated fan base of this. People are like, this is my childhood.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be so adamant about the way it should be, but there's not only not 100% a right way to do it, but it also comes back to like all those things you're talking about, like a comic book movie or a video game movie.
Yeah.
When you have such an immense universe, it's like, how can it succeed where everybody's expectations are met and everyone's satisfied? It's just not possible.
Well, I mean, and then there's also this thing of like a lot of authors now, like, well, I'm going to do an adaptation of my story, and I'm going to change the movie version because I already did the book version. Now I'm just going to have fun with the movie because the book already exists. And that's a dangerous, slippery slope too, because most of the people who are following you the movie or the TV show are fans of the book. So when you change it, you're just like going to alienate people who might have gone to the book, or people who are already fans of the book and are going to go into seeing the movie. I mean, the most recent one, which is funny to me, was they just put out DC Animated just put out Hush, right? Yeah. And they completely changed the ending, and I haven't heard one person or critic who's happy with the change they made. Where it's like, yeah, we're just going to change who Hush is completely in the movie.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. I mean, I do know it just came out, but I mean, I think that's one that has its own rabid fan base. I mean, people are always like, how are there so many of these DC animated movies? And I said, because they have a huge following. I mean, a massive fan base. And, it's just, that's one thing that DC has always gotten right, that they built their, sketched out their universe a lot more, filled it in, because they have supplemental elements.
Yeah.
Because they don't just make, oh God, we're going to put out at least 2 tentpole movies this year.
Yeah. I mean,
so it's just a different way of doing it.
They've done well on movies this year. Clearly, they're no Marvel, but most people are fans of the media product, or fans of the cartoons and the TV shows where they smoke Marvel completely.
But it's kind of like, when you get back though, like to that idea, like you're talking about, Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, Walking Dead just ended the comic series.
Yeah.
Which originally it ended on issue 192. And originally Kirkman said, well, I'm going to do 500 issues or whatever. It's 1,000 issues. I'll keep going for 20, 30 years. I have all these scripts and all this sketched out, and it's kind of like, or penciled in. And then you go, well, here we are at the cusp of it just crested 15 years as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, you have a show that's obviously failing now. It's not doing the numbers it used to. Then you got one spinoff that never really clicked with people, but did obviously enough numbers to justify its continued existence. And then another spinoff that who knows.
Well, and then there's the mothership, which like bleeds, showrunners like other shows, like fire like extras. I mean, I've never heard of a situation like The Walking Dead where they like fired that many showrunners and stayed popular and profitable.
True. But a big thing too is that their whole thing with AMC's was, we're going to take risks, and then it's like Into the Badlands.
Yeah.
And we're going to hope that people watched.
And it sucks because Into the Badlands was a really good show. Way better than Walking Dead.
I never watched it.
You should. It's on Netflix.
Yeah,
and I got mad. I watched like a season and a half, and I'm like, fuck, I'm mad that I watched this now because it ends in like, I only got a season more of this. Like, they did heavy world building thinking it was going to click, and it's like, nope. So I kind of felt like shit. I was hoping it would just be like fun martial arts, and then it's like, nope, but there's all this post-apocalyptic world building.
Yeah, but that was the thing. People watched the trailers and were like, well, either, I'm not really into martial arts and stuff. And so then it doesn't have, that was something. It's kind of like saying, even though there's something like Deadwood, the Western isn't something that, it would take an immense amount of work to really bring that back full steam. I don't even think another Tombstone or Unforgiven or anything like that, where it kind of that revival in the early 90s, Young Guns and stuff, is coming back anytime soon. You have to make a...
Well, I mean, that tells you... Quentin Tarantino makes, like, Westerns every few years. And his make money, but it's not like anyone else tries to pick up that baton. It's just like, oh, that's just the thing he does.
Well, that's the biggest, obviously, we've all saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things to that is, obviously, it's, lamenting the dying days of, these genres that are just... They're gone. They're on television and in film. They're just, and if they are around, it's the dawn of exploitation, because it can be made and done so much cheaper and easier. So now they don't care.
Well, yeah, and that's going to happen to everything. I mean, fuck. Like, I watched The Boys on Amazon, and that's better graphics, writing, and story material than most fucking superhero movies I've seen in the past 5 years.
Well, The Boys is one of the ones that got me back into comics 10 plus years ago. So I was ecstatic to see it, and it delivered. And it's like one of the first ones. And it's like, well, I'm always going to have Prime. I'm always going to have Amazon. But this is the kind of series I would have got Amazon Prime if I didn't. If I didn't have it.
Well, and it's like one of those things where, like, when you're reading the comic or whatever, there's always like a thing where it's like, well, The Boys is kind of like Watchmen, but you're never getting that vibe. You're watching this like, oh shit, it is a lot like Watchmen.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, I mean, like, we've been kind of jumping around a lot.
Well, but
I think that's good. It's conversational.
But it also comes back to the same thing. Is just that in the end, what you're talking about is, part of the reason anthologies exist is because it's a way in which it's part of the dawn. It's not. Obviously, especially in terms of horror anthologies being the most popular, is because a lot of horror stories cannot sustain a running time of over. That's why some of the best 80s movies, especially like slashers, are 77 minutes, 82 minutes. Can barely just make it. Even the best films are short.
Well, I still think the short version of Saw is better than the actual movie. The one that Lee Wanell directed.
Yeah, to sell it. Yeah. That's what I mean. But even like, people forget, like, Halloween is short. It had to have a television version with additional footage.
Yep.
And I think that people...
So did Halloween too, I think.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
But I think it's just one of those things where people forget that, I think the first major one was Dead of Night, and that's 1932, I want to say. 32? It's actually... Or no, it's 45. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. My apologies. I don't just sit there and browse IMDb. We're steering away from that.
Yeah.
But anyways,
you want to listen to us talk. You don't want to listen to us hum while we look shit up on the internet.
Let me look it up.
Yeah.
But it was it's actually receiving a restoration now, print, because obviously the elements are very antiquated. But I look forward to it. But that's was the first like horror anthology film I think ever. And then obviously you had like Amicus and the British studios that did work in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And then you kind of had that era of Tales from the Dark Side, Tales from the Crypt, in shows, and then there was always movies too.
Yeah.
Many of them based on those kinds of things. Like obviously a great one is like Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, but it's because they that environment stuff. I mean, two of the first big ones I think of in my childhood. Number one is the Willies, which was something I always remember, the box art more than anything. And it's a jumbled mess of an anthology in the respect that it juts all over the place. But it made a big impact because that was kind of who I was as a kid. It's very it's tweenish, but then it's also like super dark and fucked up. But it kind of goes all over the place, which is why I think people liked it. But I just feel like because I was reading stuff like Fear Street. At the same time that I was reading like Stephen King, so I wanted something more mature. But then at the same time, when I was watching stuff, or I was watching it with friends, like a bunch of friends together for a sleepover, people would get bored watching movies unless it had like, it wasn't something like you were saying, like it's something you weren't supposed to be watching, which a lot of horror movies you weren't. But if it was something that was obviously like a Willy's, which I believe was PG-13, you could watch it and no one was really checking in on you.
Yeah.
And then maybe you snuck another tape out too. Sometimes you could do that. Again, if you had like an older brother or sister or something to help you, depending on who picked it up. But I mean, that was, you'd have like a balance, or if you ran a video game that night and stuff. So I think that like, when I think of something like Scary Stories and stuff, it's even if you didn't have a connection to it, it's obviously that's the primary audience, but the other is the individuals trying to say, look, we're gonna create. Don't want to say the term like world building because it's not that. It's a very limited scope, but then it has endless possibilities.
Yeah,
because most of the stories in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark are no more than 2 pages. Some of them are a page, a half a page. So because they're folkloric, they are very short, meant to be told as like an oral tradition, and they were told as an oral tradition.
Kind of like the story that John Candy tells about the bear in the great outdoors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, that was the thing in a lot of Quint's story in Jaws. It's terrifying. It's one of the scariest stories ever. It's things like that people are drawn to that, especially now. We're probably the last generation that really experienced that. I mean, I don't think maybe millennials to like an early point, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah,
because they were fixated to Game Boy Color or whatever, Advance, and they had by the time you had portable systems. But like when I was on road trips, my mother read books like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. She read books like those kind of like books like you were talking about, almost with something that would be like stories of Bigfoot or something like that. She'd find things like that, and I think that's what people, you get excited to hear it, especially if you had somebody who was a good storyteller. I was lucky; both my parents were really good storytellers.
Yeah.
So I was able to like become invested, and that's any good movie, book, TV, everything is about video games. It's all about a good story generally.
Yeah.
But anthologies, it's not that. You have to have the best story. You just have to have enough stories, and that will draw you in. And so that's the thing. I mean, like something like Scary Stories, you get a few, and it's going to become like most things. It's like, well, what do you think was the strongest story? What do you think was the weakest? And what do you think? And the thing in Scary Stories, for those who haven't seen it, is that unlike most anthologies where the wraparound is very intermittent, it's like a 10-minute running time for the whole thing.
Yeah.
The wraparound is the story.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an inverted style.
Yeah, it kind of felt like sort of like I guess the easiest way, almost like a video game. Like,
A little bit, yeah.
you're these characters, and every time you hit a story, it was almost like you were hitting the boss for that level, or like you're playing a role-playing game and you're like playing that character until you get to that character's boss or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fair.
That's the only way I can like cogently explain it. I mean, it's the wraparound, or like Jumanji.
True.
Something.
Yeah, it could be a little bit Jumanji.
Yeah, it's like, because you're like, they throw you in this world, and every once in a while you're gonna. Well, it doesn't work because Jumanji's not real. Let's say Silent Hill or something. Back to the video game. It's like, here's the thing you recognize from the video game.
Well, that too. Well, and this was a big service, is that the designs of the creatures overall are real, are very true to the counterparts. I mean, it's Stephen Gammell's artwork is what was so. The tales were dark, but it's kind of like a Hansel and Gretel thing, or a, what do you call it? Hans Christian Andersen, or the. I'm sorry, what was the other one off the top of my head? Brothers Grimm.
Yeah.
The other folk tales and stuff, which is a very deep connection to anthology, because these are old tales. Like, what do you call it? When a Stranger Calls is the other one I was thinking of, where it's not an anthology, but it is a movie based on a folk tale, an urban legend. So those types of things. So with Scary Stories, what they were trying to do is, it's a fan service. Again, lean back to that.
Yeah.
But for somebody like yourself who was never into it, it's just kind of like, if you've never seen any of these things, did they, does it scare you? Does it intimidate you? Does it?
Yeah, like, I haven't read the book. Like, so, I mean, I don't really think the setting or time of the story matters. But I thought it was actually really clever that they set it in 1968 by kind of putting it in a place where, like, a place in time where kids would be really into reading scary stories. And, of course, it always solves the age-old problem, like, how do we get these kids off their phone in the movie?
That's true.
But I'm like, just doing that was creating a mood and a time. Like, weirdly enough, one of the things I thought they did that was, like, really clever that there were a lot of younger people at the screening I was at. And I'm sure, like, maybe, like, I'll say, like, 10 or 15 people max probably even understood the reference, was having the DJ on the radio be Wolfman Jack.
Yeah, like American Graffiti.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, you're saying this, like, this is an innocent time in America. Like, that's what that invokes to me.
Yeah.
It evokes to me, And I know that they, like, they didn't have him howl or anything, but clearly that guy was supposed to be Wolfman Jack.
Well, yeah, it's a common trope in these kind of movies that set in these time periods to give him a gruffer voice. And that kind of cadence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's true. It's a great point. And obviously, I mean, I think some people probably were really surprised they didn't put it in the early 80s when the story came out, especially with, like, the success of Stranger Things and It.
Yeah.
But again, I think the 80s thing is an overload.
I will say, if they had set the story in the 80s with all the kids on their bikes and the walkie-talkies, I'm sure a bunch of people would have been like, Stranger Things ripoff.
Yeah, exactly. Even though that was what most of our childhoods were like in the 80s.
Well, I'll just put it like this. Like, I just watched The Good Boys a few days ago. And, like, literally, like, they're riding around their bikes at one point. One of the characters like, "Hey, Stranger Things, get the fuck out of here!"
Yeah. Well, because it's and that's real weird.
It's becoming a trope now.
Yeah, which is bizarre. But it's kind of like if you see kids in if you replace a film like our heyday in arcades, like somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s, like when we were into fighting games, But people will be linking now like Stranger Things. And it's like, there's no fucking Stranger Things playing Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter or Samurai Showdown or something. It just was like what you did.
Yeah.
Because until those games had console ports, and even their console ports weren't as good as the game. So people were into it.
I mean, realistically, like, we still haven't gotten to a point in movies yet where they're, like, accurately representing, I think, our childhoods, maybe like the early end of it, but like, most of us are like 90s kids,
Yeah. Well, a big part of it when people get into the 80s and stuff is that I think it just depends on where you live. Like where you live, your childhood and stuff. Like you talked about on the podcast, like being near video stores and movie theaters and stuff. Like I wasn't near any of those things as a kid. I grew up very rural.
Yeah.
So it was a very different experience for me. But like I would watch movies and I'm like, oh my God, I wish I, was that close to an arcade or something.
Right.
Like, the only time we got to play arcade games, the only one that had them in town was the two pizza places.
Yeah.
That was a huge part of their business. So they must have paid the rent on sometimes probably on arcades.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just talking about this when somebody posted about how they were shutting down all the Pizza Huts where you can, sit down and eat, because Pizza Hut just wants to be essentially a delivery-only business, which is what Domino's is. I don't ever remember Domino's having seating for...
No, neither do I.
But, straight up, I remember, Pizza Hut was, the sit-down fast food franchise, and there was one where I was growing up that, clearly was the one where all the Little League teams would go after their games, and they had a giant fucking arcade in the back. Literally, anytime I think that place has an arcade in my mind, it has to have at least 10 to 15 games, and they had a straight-up arcade. It was all fighting games, Konami Simpsons, Konami X-Men, that's
the big multiplayers for the, and if they had the money or the space, they would do the sit-down games.
Yeah.
Sims, racing, Star Wars arcade, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they had one of those. I don't remember because I never played those games. But they
but
had,
that's
exactly.
big stuff.
To me, in my mind, if a place had more than one Konami multiplayer game and had a Neo Geo MVS machine and Street Fighter, at least one Street Fighter. I'm okay, clearly, they've got money, but they also had, they had, two MVS machines. They had Street Fighter and Super Street Fighter and Champion Edition,
Yeah.
They knew where their bread was buttered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, just the way it is. We only had Godfathers, which, is strangely, there was one here in Mesa, I remember when I moved here, but, it's long gone. But, it only had a few games.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, really young, it was Dragon's Lair and Gauntlet and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was just that, you just didn't have a lot of that stuff. And I'm just, like I said, movies, it's hard to capture that. Putting things in 1968 for a film, it's people who grew up, who would have been kids, born in the late 50s to early 60s, who might be there. You're growing up in the Cold War era. You are... it's weird because it's a small town, but then it looks way too big at the same time in this movie. There's a lot of, I always have an issue with stuff that with political and historical accuracy, which they play up a lot in this movie, is Nixon. Yeah. And a lot of it is okay, this is pre-Watergate Nixon. He was Tricky Dick. That was his nickname.
Yeah.
13 odd, before even the Kennedy, presidency when they ran against each other. But it's one of those things where I'm man, they're putting way too much of Nixon, Vietnam, trying to make it
was very loaded, because the whole movie takes place I'm guess it was right, if it's Halloween, so it's right before election day.
That's the whole point.
Humphrey, Johnson, and Nixon, which I don't think did LBJ even run for re-election? Yeah, he did.
Yeah, it was a three-way.
Yeah.
You're actually watching on screen, and there's the sheriff's office where he makes the point. But what I'm saying is people, it was, all political stuff was very, of course it was the news of the day. It was just one of those things.
It was just there to dot the I's, to try to say, see folks, this time was just like now. And
that's what I mean.
Just like Trump. And I get it. I get it. To me, it was hitting you over the head with it. I'm not fucking stupid.
That's what I mean.
But at the same time, I also thought the reason it was there, it's it's 1968. By throwing in some social commentary, they're trying to kind of say look, it's paying some kind of homage to Romero. Yeah,
which of course is the big hallmark of the date and time. Of course it is. And, Night of the Living Dead made, which we've already referenced here on this podcast, because it is the when we talked about our zombie episode, it's so important. And that's the thing is that, it's, I don't know. I mean, I guess, like I said, I just have issues with those because I can see the pros or the possibilities of it or why it was put in, but it just felt so heavy-handed that I just couldn't personally get into it. Like, it detracted from the quality of the film for me.
I will say... Oh, go on.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. No, please.
I don't think it was necessary because, like I said, it was trying to interject something from the now and then, and I'm not saying that those issues aren't important. I will say...
Or that they didn't happen then, because that's not true. They did.
But I will say the thing I thought was done really well, and I wish they'd kind of played up a little bit more on if they wanted to talk about issues of patriotism and stuff, and they do to a certain degree, but I feel like putting in the presidential stuff kind of took away from it, was the draft dodging thing.
Exactly.
They did that really well.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Especially with the Me Tai Dottie Walker, which is actually my favorite story from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. The version they did, I didn't like as much, but it felt a little mid-aughts, like that.
Yeah, it was
Legion, the Unborn, all those stories with the people twisting and stuff, where people are like, "Oh, that's what scares me," and it's like, okay.
Yeah, I was not a fan of that character. One, because I was like, I don't know what the fuck Me Tai Dottie Walker.
Well, the whole thing about the Me Tai Dottie Walker thing is. Excuse me, it's a folk legend again, but the whole point of it was that the thing about Me Tai Dottie Walker is that the creature says it, and then you're supposed to reply something. He doesn't say things like coward or any of that kind of stuff, and that wasn't a problem of making a connection, because I like the whole idea of like, my brother came back in pieces, and then it's like, that's fine. Well, yeah,
that was a good tie. Yeah, it's a good falling apart.
But that's not the way. The story is very simplistic, and that's all these stories are simplistic. And the only one that comes across pretty much exactly the way it is in the movies, I mean, the Harold, the Scarecrow one, and the Red Spot are, because they're the most pedestrian.
Yeah, the Red Spot felt very goosebumpy to me.
Well, the whole movie kind of.
Well,
is.
Yeah, I mean,
and the big
I thought it was better than that. I did like the thing with the girl being thrown back, kind of in time, and kind of experiencing what the Bellows girl went through.
Yeah, I like that part too.
Because that felt more like Crimson Peak-ish or something, like
I thought
gothic horror.
I thought they were going to go full Shining in the first time when the kid gets trapped in the room.
Yeah,
and like looks out and it's back in the turn of the century. I was like, that's a great concept. I always think those work well, but the issue is kind of like you said, it's like it's goosebumpy, and Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark are the Hallmark anthologies of the 90s.
Well, and here's my big thing with it. Like, who is the audience for this movie? I don't think I'm the audience for this movie. Is this like aimed at kids and they just marketed it toward adults? That's kind of the vibe I got.
Well, I think of so we're at 2 Goosebumps movies. The first one I actually thought was pretty good.
Yeah.
I actually really did enjoy it. The second one was just, it was a very, very, way too juvenile and just not very good. I mean, it just wasn't a good story. And then the, what was it? I heard they're going to make an Are You Afraid of the Dark movie. They're going to remake the series and all this stuff. And Are You Afraid of the Dark is one of those things
they anthology.
they just can't, I don't think they can ever recapture that. And I've seen some other stories or other anthologies that they've tried to do. There was one that was, I think, a British series on Netflix. I just can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I watched it like a year or so ago. But it just, it was okay, but it wasn't great. It was just, again, it's because I'm watching it through, I'm being 40, trying to imagine it through like an 11-year-old, and that's what you're saying. Like, so for someone being 40 and watching this movie, Scary Stories, they're watching it because they're going, well, this is a part of my childhood, and I'm willing to give it a chance because, I hold these characters and stories close to me. So I'll go watch it. But in terms of like building a new fan base, I just don't see it really happening.
Yeah.
The movie obviously isn't doing bad. I mean, it's making its money back and probably will and then some. But,
it's clearly set up for a sequel.
Yeah, but I just don't know how they can really like how they can have a lot of success with this, because it's not a bad movie. It's not a good movie. It's almost like I said, I'd rather grade it as an anthology film. And as an anthology film, I like the idea of that instead of making the wraparound, it's the entire story.
Yeah.
They're involved with, like you were saying, like a Jumanji, whatever way you want to look at, like an immersive experience.
Yeah.
But that's its downfall too, because even though these stories were really, really short, and so people go, well, then it's a perfect method to administer them and to bring them to life. It's also its downfall because a couple of stories were strong enough that they could have been much more developed. And even if it was taking it from 5 minutes to 10 minutes, then you'd have 4 or 5 stories. You already have 40 minutes of your movie.
You know, it's interesting to me because I kept thinking a few years ago they wanted to give Guillermo del Toro, or at least he was pitching for it. I don't know where it ended up. He, you know, like, I want to do a Haunted Mansion movie. You know how they did a Pirates of the Caribbean one, and the Eddie Murphy one didn't work out because it didn't touch on anything from the ride.
Yeah.
Watching this movie afterwards, one of the things I thought is, like, if Guillermo del Toro did make a Haunted Mansion movie, this is pretty much exactly what it would be like.
Yeah, probably pretty similar.
Yeah, like, instead of, like, you know, there'd be, like, a part where, like, oh, the Hatbox Ghost, or Madame Leota or something, just be like little things, but there'd be a wraparound story about kids breaking into a haunted mansion or something like that. So, like, I feel like this is, like, what he perceived, like, you know, as a producer, like, you know, like, oh, I'm gonna get the parents to bring in the kids and this will become a tradition or something. But, like, you know, like, I feel like watching it, I'm like, it feels like a kid's movie. It's engaging enough for an adult, but, like, I don't know that I would. I mean, I thought the main girl did a really good job. You know,
yes,
like,
I really enjoyed her.
Yeah, like, she kind of had like a you know, Thora Birch meets Ellen Page kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was
going
gonna say too. Yeah, she's got a real you know, far too intelligent for obviously her environment and stuff, but
yeah, I thought she was really interesting, and I thought her story, like, of all the kids, I thought she was the most interesting. I thought, like, the other kids, like, especially Chuck, I found him really fucking annoying.
Yeah, he was very, very annoying. And then the whole, like, Augie thing, it's like, it's an interesting idea in the respect of that kind of era of that, you know, kind of the dawn of women's liberation and stuff, and the changing of households and stuff, that maybe a mother really would have absconded with her lover or something for the weekend and left their kids.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I said, they weren't the best characters. It wasn't the best story. It just wasn't. It's just not the best movie. And then as like an anthology and stuff, like I said, it's just one of those things where it's like, if it didn't have the connection to scary stories, people would probably be like, I really like the creature design, or I thought it was very inventive or interesting. But then they would also. But that's the thing about it. It's only 2 of the creatures are really interesting, because the Scarecrow is very generic kind of style.
Although, really, that was the one that got me. That, like, the way they did it, where he was coughing up straw.
Oh, no, I
that
like his...
like grossed me out.
No,
like,
I like
weirdly
his...
enough, for this movie not being gory at all or having any blood. I will say that was like, ugh. And also the thing with Augie with the toe, you know.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the scariest images ever in the original books. And the way they display it, I just wish they had been much slower to show that creature. Like when it came up the stairs, I wish they had done more like jump cuts to, you know, and paste it out a little bit better. But and I love the creature is also the one with Chuck. I like the idea of it, like, being this amorphous, sexless, like, creature that absorbs you. Like, that's kind of terrifying in a way. Like, I like it also, it's, what do you call it? His inevitability, his doom. That he's like, I like those kind of things. But I just didn't, in the end. It's like, yeah, it has things I like. Like, if I found this for $5 in a Blu-ray bin, I'd probably buy it just to watch certain parts again. But overall, like, anthologies, I guess that's why I hit so hard on it, are like one of my 3 favorite subgenres. I love anthologies, I love psychological horror, and I love, like, horror comedies. And I'll throw slashers in there too. So I kind of have a little bit in every pot, and I just feel like why anthologies work so well, again, as we kind of talked about too, in like short stories, is because most of these things, people try to flesh them out and they lose all their, they're no longer potent.
Yeah.
And the problem with this thing is, also, it was a little too long. It was an hour and 48 minutes, and I think it was a little too much.
Yeah, I sometimes you can do more with less, but like, so I think that's sometimes the issue when you have kind of like a horror movie and a lot of people involved who are really into the effects. It becomes a little too precious.
True. I also kind of just wanted a drag me to hell ending in this one.
Yeah, I really the happy ending was just there to set up sequels. I think sometimes you don't have to set up the sequel every fucking time.
Which is stupid because you don't have to have the same characters. There's nobody here that is... She's probably the best character, and you really don't even need her. Because it's just like in the end, what it comes down to is the book is the central character.
Yeah.
The stories are. So you can keep making this into different stuff forever.
Unfortunately, I think they fell into that whole Resident Evil trap of like, oh, this girl we created is the star, so we'll just twist all the movies to fit into this narrative we're creating. All the stories in the book to fit into this narrative we're creating.
Oh, yeah. Movie. Well, he didn't marry the girl in the movie yet either, so you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Paul W.S. Anderson. But yeah, no, I mean, in the end, it's not bad stuff. I mean, like I said, when we talk about, like, anthology films, I mean, it's... to me, it's like the Amicus films are like the hallmark for me, and then a lot of the other movies, it's just... I like everything. I mean, I enjoy, like I mentioned, Tales from the Dark Side, The Willies. There's a lot of great horror anthologies, but again, it's always going to be a matter of a case of some are stronger than others, and that's what it is. It becomes a balancing act.
Yeah.
There was a couple newer ones in the last few, like Campfire Tales. I enjoy, which is also heavy on urban legends and stuff, but it's it's harder to find now.
Yeah.
Because most people are afraid to make them because you'd think with this, like, lack of attention span generation, they'd be more successful.
Yeah.
But then I think it's kind of like you were saying, people are so fan-based and obsessive about their universe building that they're like, oh, it's too short. There's not enough to build from.
Yeah, so then, they invest more in the wraparound. I mean, honestly, that's true of a lot of things. I mean, I think half the reason people like Tales from the Hood is because they like the creepy funeral home wraparound.
Well, yeah, it's a great... Well, because, he's just so over the top, Clarence Wright the Third. But Tales from the Hood is a great one, too. But, I mean, it's like... And they tried, like I said, like you were saying, like adapting into a modern age is something like VHS.
Yeah.
Which is, I was kind of going through... This is one I adapt to. I mean, obviously, the mother of them all in the modern age is Trick or Treat. I feel like an idiot for not mentioning it earlier, but it's just kind of like, in Creepshow, which is getting its, revival. A lot of people are coming back to, like, of course, Stephen King is always a standard issue, but I noticed a lot of people with the reissue on Blu-ray of Cat's Eye who maybe missed that or were alerted to, because people always think of the story with Drew Barrymore, but it's like the Quitters Inc. is hard as hell. That's got to be one of the toughest damn sequences. But I mean, and they're finding old black and white stuff like Black Sabbath or Black Sunday, and which is not an anthology, but Black Sabbath is. And I mean, another inventive one was ABCs of Death. No, in terms of trying to do something different with anthology.
Yeah, I think the issue with ABCs of Death is there's too many letters in the alphabet, so you're just going to get too many mediocre entries.
Well, they also were...
I mean, that's why the Field Guide to Evil isn't even that good.
I still haven't seen it.
It's on Amazon.
Yeah, I've been meaning to watch it and stuff. I was thinking of some of the ones that gotten reissues recently, like Monster Club on Blu-ray. Of course, Shout Factory's Body Bags treatment.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is just because of the mammoth nature of John Carpenter. And it's a great one. I think that's my favorite Mark Hamill performance of all time, because he genuinely scares the shit out of me in that. Like, I think he's so unhinged. It's just crazy. I love him in that. But, I mean, I don't know. I was, like, creeping through. I mean, there's just so many other ones.
And then I'm looking forward to the new Creepshow, which should be interesting.
Yeah, I'm really psyched on that one. I mean, it's not dead. I even thought recently of, I know we both enjoyed Southbound. That was another one that, is a newer one. And, I mean, I think it's possible. Tales of Halloween. I like that, even though I wasn't a huge fan of XX, I mean, I'm just kind of spitballing off
Yeah,
some
I
different
liked.
ideas. You know,
My favorite one in XX was the one with the girl from House of the Devil, and then her dad was in a cult.
yes.
I don't remember what it was called, but that was my favorite one. And then the one Yovanka did that had the kids.
Are you not thinking of Holidays? Are you?
No, this is the
oh,
one
I'm trying to remember what
Yovanka did. Like basically, the kids stop eating because the guy tells the kids something on a bus. Then
oh yes. It's hard for me to remember because I was trying to remember because Holidays is another big one because I love the one where the girl goes to the abandoned town looking for her father.
No, maybe that is in Holidays.
That is in
Holidays. You know what? Yeah, that's the one.
That was so
that was
unsettling.
my favorite one in Holidays. My favorite one in XX was the one Yovanka did and it's the mom from The Strain.
Yes. Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah, I still think the weakest one in XX was St. Vincent's, where it's like it feels like a shitty music video where the dad dies on the kid's birthday and she puts his body in a panda suit.
Yeah.
I did not care for that one.
Don't worry,
we didn't stylized.
We didn't spoil anything. It's just genuinely awful.
We're just saying the premise. Like literally, that's the premise, and it doesn't really get any better.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like the other thing too with like Trick or Treat is as a perfect wraparound, and they created a central character that's a mascot, he's an icon now in Sam. And that only took, that's a movie that's only 12 years old.
Right.
And it wasn't even released till 10 years ago. So it's crazy to think. Like I said, I think Tales of Halloween's really underrated. But yeah, I Chillerama's another one I love.
Doing a new Sam figure.
Yeah, I know that took a while.
San Diego Con.
Yeah.
Looks really good.
And I know a couple birthdays ago, I got you the Blu-ray of Two Evil Eyes.
Yeah.
Which is another great idea, to just do 2 stories and make them nearly feature length to let 2 exceptional directors flex their might. And I think that's another great idea. Like I said, it's just hard to get it right in anthologies. And so, I'm sorry to say Scary Stories isn't one that got it perfectly right, but it's not wrong either. So, I don't know. I feel like that's, I really, the problem with discussing anthologies to me is that we can go on for hours and hours talking about our favorite segments from them.
Right.
But what I want to get to, like where I was spitballing all those ones, is more like, because I want to hear from the audience and stuff. I'd love to hear what your favorite segments were or favorite anthologies. Like, please post, let us know. Maybe we can elaborate on a future episode or something like that. But what I really would like, is that it's an interesting category to take it in two hands. Is that you have it? Do you like it as a whole?
Yeah.
And do you like it? What individual story is the strongest, or what is that makes you like that? Because very few people I know ever say overall they love an anthology.
Right.
They're always focused on a story.
That's
so
kind of
or a wraparound.
I don't think you can love every story in an anthology because they're all going to be so different in genre and focus.
I do think that's why Creepshow and Trick or Treat have become so huge, because I don't think there's a weak one in either of those. I even think Creepshow 2 is flawless. A lot of people don't, but I think that's why they trimmed the fat on making it from 5 to 3.
Yeah.
And then I like that they did a much more animated wraparound in that entry, because I feel like if they had tried to duplicate it exactly like Creepshow, it wouldn't have worked.
Exactly.
So, lots of good stuff. But yeah, please let us know what your favorite anthology was. And it's kind of where we start with the meat of the matter, but
hey, sometimes it works out that way.
I know we're kind of winding down, but anything else that you
no,
really want to talk about? We'll talk about next time.
Yeah, I think most of I went to a lot of horror panels at San Diego Con. If you go to our YouTube channel, which is linked on cultfalling.co, I've posted most of them up. Like the Bold Voice of Contemporary Horror is on there. Which, I liked that panel. It wasn't as good as last year's panel. And Blumhouse really didn't have anything to say. We saw clips of little monsters and villains, and there was one I really liked. It was I just want to get the title right, so you're gonna have to do the Daniel Isn't Real. and that's coming out in the fall. It's from Spectre Vision and Legion M. It's the same people put out Mandy, and the trailer definitely had that like weird cult, like it had like a very like a Donnie Darko meets Mandy vibe to it that I thought was really interesting. I don't think there's any trailers for this out yet. They played the trailer for it at the show. You can hear the audio on the video I posted, but I couldn't film the trailer because I guess me and just cut it for like a film festival, so we're not allowed to film, trailers because it's theft. They had one that's villains, which had Micah Monroe from It Follows and Bill Skarsgård from It, and they're like criminals. Like it felt very much like a zombie. Like it doesn't have zombies in it. It just kind of felt like Zombieland. Like they're just like kind of like joyriding criminals. Like we're stealing shit and shit's happening. It didn't feel like a horror movie. It felt more like
Well, maybe when Zombieland Double Tap comes out, we can do a horror comedy review or something.
I filmed the Creepshow panel, but I haven't posted that yet. I'll probably actually have that closer to the show actually debuting.
Awesome.
But yeah, that was a really good panel. I will say that I picked up a lot of cool shit at San Diego, but one of the things, like, I waited in line to ask a question, and then they ran long and didn't give anybody a chance to ask questions. But everyone who was in line got a copy of the Creepshow comic. Like, oh, okay, because, Heavy Metal made a Creepshow comic. And Greg Nicotero said he was signing the next day. It wasn't until I ran into Chucky later, and he wanted to see it, that he opened it up and realized everyone who's on the panel actually signed the comic on the inside cover.
Yeah, that's sweet.
So that was pretty cool.
One awesome thing Victor brought back for me was the Garbage Pail Kids GPK Universal Monster mashup that Super 7 did.
Yeah.
And these just look amazing.
Yeah, Joe Simcoe did a really good job on these. Like, they're like actual, like, they feel like, trading cards when I was a kid, like hard cardboard. And Joe Simcoe did a really good job of painting them. They look kind of like,
Did you open and steal a sketch or something out of here? I'm just giving you shit because it's easy.
No, it's weird because there's no sketches in them, but like there's only 4 different packs.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
And it's like weird. I was just like wondering if like that's when I was like, oh shit, this has the 6 exact same cards as this one. It's very strange.
Yeah, it's very cool though.
Yeah.
They do a really good job with it. Like I think people kind of fell off on the reaction figures, and then Super 7's kind of like really making a comeback with them, because I think that their designs are just their variants are so next level.
Yeah, but no, like
very cool.
The cool thing about is for some reason a lot of people thought these were San Diego exclusives. They were just making their debut there, but I got some to sell, and it was like people like gobbling them up for crazy prices, and I'm like, these aren't even exclusive. Like, even when I was buying them, I got the last 2 boxes. I'm like, don't worry, we'll have more like in a couple months, Yeah. But it became a big thing in the Garbage Pail Kid community. Like, oh my god,
well, everything, you should know that by now. It's like the absolute insanity of the community. As much as I love the UG and all this stuff, I mean, there's just insanity like so many other subgenres, but or communities, or lack thereof. I don't even know if you can call them communities sometimes.
No,
but very good stuff.
There was a lot of cool stuff there. Went to what we do in the shadows interactive. We met the guy who plays Guillermo. He was super cool. Like what else? I went to the Snowpiercer thing they had going on, where you like put in your email box, you got a ration. It was like a fucking cricket bar, like really chocolate covered crickets. I didn't eat it, but it was cool. And then and then we had the Arizona Toy Con a couple weeks ago, and I picked up a bunch of cool stuff there.
Yeah, that was really good. I am going to post a review of it here probably tonight, or by the time you hear this episode, but I went to Game On Expo, which it's in its 4th year here, and was a lot of fun. Or 5th year. God, but it was probably the best yet. Absolutely awesome. On the horror side of thing, to relate to the podcast, not heavy duty. What's her name? Jen Taylor was there, who's very famous for a lot of big mainstream. She was Cortana in Halo and Princess Peach. But she also was Zoe in Left 4 Dead, so I got my copy of Left 4 Dead autographed. Awesome to see Arizona Hive there. They're the Resident Evil cosplayers who do a lot of great work for animal care charities, and saw a lot of cool like horror themed art in the artist alley and stuff. But it was just, it's just a lot of fun. I really enjoy that event. I think it's probably one of the best. I'm a big board game enthusiast too, and they have some there, but there actually is going to be a gaming con coming up here in Arizona. So if you're a fan of those, yeah, I mean, I feel like Arizona's finally getting to the point where it's like, we've got, ZapCon, we have Mad Monster, we have Phoenix Comic Con, we have Phoenix Sphere Con, we have, Game On, we have, which I just talked about. And then we have this gaming con. We've had film festivals. We've done our own stuff with like Monster Market for those that came out to that. And we have a lot more coming, but it's really nice to have so many things where I don't have to go out of state for it. How about that? It's the easiest way to describe it. I can't think of too much. The only thing I was going to touch on here, maybe we'll leave this here as on our way out and stuff, was because I know we just mentioned it, but I wanted to quick say two that I didn't. Not horror movies at all, but two films I saw recently, we both saw, that I found to have two really unsettling parts was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, with the Spawn Ranch part with when he goes, I thought Brad Pitt's, I thought that was great tension.
Oh yeah, he was really good.
And then I know we were both big fans of The Art of Self-Defense.
Oh god, that movie was so good.
So good. And but it's a really unsettling idea.
Oh, it's a really dark comedy, but it's kind of like, to me, it's like almost a more unsettling version of Fight Club. Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah. It's like if it really, and that's another film too, where when you talk about dating it to the right time to make sure it meets all the metrics for, why the fuck didn't they do this kind of thing. They did it really well with that movie. Yeah. So I highly recommend seeing both while they're still in theaters if you can. Like I said, not horror, but but they have some of those ideas that are really well done because they're both very dark movies. Oh yeah. Yeah. So worth checking out. For sure. And then like I said, sorry for the delay. We'll have some new episodes. We're working on some guests. We got a lot of topics here and a lot of events. I know on my birthday here, unfortunately I won't be here, but we are showing The Burning. Yeah. Yes. So if you're going to be able to make it out. And next Wednesday, we're also, I think, going to be out at the Crescent Ballroom. Oh, for Tim Capello. Tim Capello. I will be there for that, though. That'll be a lot of fun. So lots of cool events happening on the horizon here. And then, up on Cult Following, Monday we'll have a review of The Nightingale up, the new movie from Jennifer Kent, the director of The Babadook. Yep. Saw it a couple of weeks ago. Very intense movie that I have a lot to say about. Awesome. And Good Boys will have a review of that up this weekend as well. So, cool. And then you can always check out our other podcasts on the network. We've got View and Spew Review. They got a new spew of a movie called Sasquatch Massacre, I think, or something like that. It looks pretty crazy. So they're doing the deep dives over there. So that they are doing excellent work. So until next time, remember, check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/cultclassics. Everything we do is linked on cultfollowing.co. You can follow us there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anything you like. All our info is on there. And remember, follow us on Instagram. We're always doing cool giveaways, so you never know what we'll be giving away tickets to in the future. Until next time, I'm Victor Moreno, along with Kirby Nelson. Meet Donnie Walker. So until next time, stay scared.